Shoot. Hey, all you cats and kittens?
You can do that. Yeah.
No.
I'm not too bad. That was a great little.
Hey, man. I'm gregarious.
Hi, up on this program. I'm Riley. I'm here with Joe Verzwyvelt.
Hey, how's it going?
He's currently an emergency physician at Gundersen Health Systems here in Crosse. I've actually worked under him as a medical scribe for the last 2 years. And so we're here primarily for EMS week. He is a medical director in Winona at Winona Health, Winona EMS, sorry. And he also he volunteers here where we are now, which you've seen before at West Salem First Responders. So he's got a depth in emergency services. Just a little background on him. He got his Bachelor's of Science at Louisiana State University, LSU.
Go Tigers.
He went to medical school at the University of Mississippi. Then he went to his emergency medicine residency at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center, which took him to Rockford Memorial Hospital for emergency physician, correct? And then he worked for a bit at Winona Health as an emergency physician, and now in Gundersen Health Crosse. He also now, like I said, is the medical director for Winona EMS. So can you take me kind of through just your history and involvement in EMS, just kind of from when you started to now?
Yeah, so really I didn't get any of my core involvement in EMS till I was in residency because it was a strong part of our program. I kind of always been interested in EMS. You know, there had been a lot of times I remember in high school just kind of interacting with emergency services and you know, seeing accidents or even having stopped on the interstate for an accident and helped out and been like, this is really cool stuff. And in college, when I was in college at LSU, we did have a big event. Hurricane Katrina hit while I was there.
Oh, wow.
And so actually they closed our campus and turned it into a hospital. So they used the Pete Maravich Assembly Center, which is our basketball arena, was a hospital. And so our entire campus was just filled with emergency vehicles going back and forth to New Orleans.
Wow.
And evacuating people, and helicopters were landing. Yeah. And so I volunteered there in the assembly center as kind of helping out and doing whatever they needed. And obviously I didn't have medical training, but I was a pharmacy technician. So I was working in a local hospital doing that, but was able to help out.
In your undergrad, you were?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I did the pharmacy tech certification thing while I was there as well. So that's what I worked at throughout college. So I always had a strong interest, and I think that kind of brooded my interest in doing emergency medicine as I went through and decided to do the pre-med and go on to medical school.
Right.
When I got to medical school, I ended up, you know, when it comes to residency selection, a strong EMS involvement was something that I looked forward to. And in Cincinnati, you're a flight doc, so you fly, you know, for starting your second year, you fly for 3 years as a flight doc.
Oh, really?
Independent. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Also there, you get to get involved in tactical EMS, so working with the SWAT team. I was a medical director there, or associate medical director for a couple of fire departments while I was in residency. Also got to work with the Secret Service. I did dignitary support, so I would be dressed up in a suit. I'd have a suitcase filled with like all my gear, and I'd be with the Secret Service whenever I did a couple of stints. So Mitt Romney came into town, and so you just kind of followed them around all day like you're in the convoy.
Oh, yeah.
So I did a couple of events with the Secret Service.
Were you as big and mean as you look now?
Oh man, that's always, well, I packed on a few pounds in residency because I didn't get to work out as much, but
right.
You know, but that was really cool.
Yeah.
You know, I worked big athletic events, festivals, so, but yeah, lots of EMS experience there. So that kind of took me into, always been interested in EMS. So whenever I was getting a job, I wanted to stay focused and have that as part of what I'm doing, not just being an emergency physician, but maintaining, you know, contact and, you know, becoming a medical director of EMS services. So I'm medical director at Winona Area Ambulance Service. I've been there for, you know, 3 or 4 years now. But there's a lot of smaller departments, first responder groups that I, have had medical direction of and helped develop over the years as well.
So can you take me through like a little bit of like what the medical director job roles are? Like kind of what you do, how often you do it, I guess.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, and so your primary responsibility as a medical director is to make sure that your crew, the people that are working under you, are certified, that they have the skills they need to do what they're doing. And so a lot of what you're doing is, making sure they're maintaining their skills, doing education, also protocol development. So as a EMS provider, whether you're an EMT, a paramedic, you're operating off protocols, they're called standing protocols, because me, in conjunction with the director of the service, have written protocols out that they are following.
Right.
So it's kind of in place of me saying you can do this, they're allowed to do this without me being there.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have a lot of responsibility in maintaining those, making sure they're up to date with the latest science, and that your crews are doing them effectively.
Yeah. So have you had a lot of meetings kind of with all this COVID stuff as far as protocol, like procedure kind of things, or no?
Initially, yeah, when we were trying to develop because we're having change a lot of things we're doing. How many people are we sending into a house? What crews, is someone going to stay outside, someone going to go inside? How are we interacting with the fire department and the police department? And then, how do we protect our crews? Because obviously our crew safety is very important. So, having to stay on top of that knowledge base so that I keep my crew safe.
Do you have kind of maybe a least favorite and a favorite part of being a medical director, or just maybe your involvement in EMS in general?
Well, it's involvement in EMS. It's like it's not always what you see on TV.
Yeah.
There's a lot of downtime. But that's part of the gig. There's a lot of upsides to it. You get to see stuff that no one gets to see unless they get involved in this. Even if you're a doctor in the hospital, you don't see going to people's homes and see how they live and have as much social interaction as you do at the hospital. I like it because I get to educate. I love education, being able to teach my crews the latest science and making sure they're up to date, and then just interacting with them on a personal level and keeping the morale going.
Right. Yeah. So I guess with your anecdote about not seeing or seeing stuff that even physicians don't get to see, I have a personal anecdote that he was fortunately there for, but it was just an overnight call or an overnight kind of thing here at West Salem. We got a call. I think it was like 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. or something. I don't remember exactly. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know where this is going.
It's to like a quick trip in West Salem, and he wasn't on call. I don't think, like, not formally on the schedule. It was just me and another younger guy who's new with the West Salem first responders, and they said, or the dispatch said, that it was a woman in labor. And this is not something that I have very much experience in, obviously. And so we showed up, and she was like standing up and just like clearly having contractions actively. And we didn't it was not my scope. I didn't know what to do necessarily. And thankfully, Joe, mustacheless Joe, I believe. He didn't have.
Yeah, I didn't know that. This is not allowed on an OB/GYN service.
But he rolled up in his truck and took over from there, and we actually ended up we assisted giving birth in the back of the ambulance, just in the Quitcher parking lot. So that was an eye-opening experience for me, for sure. And thankfully Joe was there, because the EMTs and paramedics got there, but still he kind of took over the main head point, I guess you could say, on the call. So I'm thankful to have that. So you definitely see a lot of things that maybe most physicians don't see. I don't think most physicians could say that they've assisted in giving birth to a baby in the Quitcher parking lot.
Yeah, that was definitely interesting. Is for the the mom, I think the baby got brought on the ED, and she was making sure everybody knew that I was the one that delivered the baby, and it's like,
are there any particular cases, I guess? That was kind of an example of one, but in your involvement in EMS that have kind of stuck with you or that you'll never forget, obviously in accordance with HIPAA, but.
Sure. I mean, the case you brought up was a great one. I mean, even being an emergency physician, I rarely deliver a child.
Yeah, right.
In residency, we have to deliver, so we have to get 10 deliveries. We usually get a few more than that, but it's always a hairy situation because I mean, unless you're an OBG or an obstetrician, you're not delivering a lot of babies.
Yeah, right.
That one sticks out to me. The one that I always go back to that sticks back to me so profoundly is when I was a flight doc, my first flight ever. I get called out to the middle of Kentucky.
Okay. From Cincinnati?
From Cincinnati, yeah. Well, kind of rural Kentucky.
Right.
The report I get is just guy's very sick. He had in an attempt to take his life, he had driven his truck into a tree at like over 100 miles an hour and was ejected. So I get there. And kind of the way it hands, the helicopter lands. Usually it's something cool, like you're like on an interstate and it's shut down, and you kind of land and
Feeling funny.
And yeah, it's like a scene from like Top Gun or something.
Right.
So you get out of because they'll usually rendezvous with you somewhere. So I think we met at a local fire department. Get in the back of the ambulance, and the guy was so sick, like no one had really done anything. He barely had a blood pressure. Wasn't breathing on his own. His head, you could see contents of his brain outside his head, and every bone was broke. I mean, both his femurs were snapped, both his humerus was snapped. I'm like, I've been in residency not even a full year yet.
Yeah.
And here I am like, what's going on? So then you just start your training. You're like ABCs, intubate the guy.
Okay.
We put IOs, which are intraosseous needles you kind of put in the bone to give fluid through. We started blood products, splinted up all the extremities, put like a pelvic binder on, and get them loaded up in the helicopter, get to the emergency room, and we fly them in, land on top of the hospital. You bring them down into your trauma bay and continue the resuscitation. The guy had just about every organ was mangled. I also had to put chest tubes in. There's no chance that this guy would survive. And then, I didn't really keep up with him. And then 3 months later, I see the guy like walk into the emergency room.
No way.
You're like, wow. It's like this,
Was
it's
he
like
recognizable? I mean, he must.
he had to go through a bunch of rehab.
Yeah.
I mean, like the guy lived, and you're like, you had no idea you'd think this guy would survive.
Physically walked in, like,
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, he had a little bit of a limp, but it was like,
Yeah.
it's pretty amazing.
I mean, there's no way he's there today without you. And
It's just like, you're like, man, you can make an impact. I mean,
Right.
The stuff you do in the field makes a huge difference.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have maybe like a favorite lesson or something? And maybe that was it, but a favorite lesson that EMS has kind of taught you?
I mean, to me, I think the big thing that it's taught me is that, the huge impact you can have on a person's life. And I think that case kind of exemplifies it, but it's, we often think about when someone goes to a hospital and they have all this care taken care of, but what happens in the field in that first hour, that first contact, that has a downstream effect that will, make an impact on that patient's outcome and potentially their life.
Right. Do you have any kind of words of advice for anyone that might see this and kind of want to get more involved in EMS or anything like that?
Yeah, I think that if EMS interests you or you have any interest in doing something medical, I think that getting started early. I had a little bit of late start getting involved, but I think that if you take the time, like Riley here, volunteering as a first responder is an excellent way to get involved. It's going to teach you a lot of lessons that a lot of people aren't going to learn until a lot later in their career. And it's going to kind of create that drive for you to kind of continue to learn and continue to push your knowledge base in that area. So
yeah, something that's always been kind of weird or surprising to me, I guess, is that EMS is kind of one of the first things that a lot of people can get into, like on their way to medicine. Like me, all I have is a bachelor's degree. And I even had it. I worked here long before I had that. So it's interesting how EMS some of it is like the most serious kind of things you can see throughout, like maybe throughout your medical career. But here I am kind of doing some of the stuff and seeing some of the stuff without even a bachelor's degree, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm a little bit jealous of people that have been involved a lot earlier than I was. And and it's a wealth of knowledge you keep with you your entire life. So.
Yeah, thanks a lot for taking the time.
Yeah, no, glad to be
Sitting
here.
down with me.